Hello and welcome to the Rambling Movie Club, where each episode we try and watch some new movies and talk about them and hopefully find some good ones. Just super quick, before we start, I listened back to the Elf episode and the end of 2019 episode, and I realised they had really bad quality audio. I've been trying out some new microphones and that's why they kind of sounded weird. But I've gone back to my old microphone with this one and I'll try and figure out what's going on with those ones. Also, I am ill with a cold and that's why I sound funny. But anyway, this episode is all about Jojo Rabbit, which you haven't seen is the recent movie by Taika Waititi. It came out in America in like October, but in the UK it came out here on like New Year's. So it's quite new for me. If you don't know anything about this movie, I'll give you a spoiler warning when I'm going to go into spoilers, but if you don't know anything about this movie, it's kind of difficult to talk about movie in public because people hear like half the conversation, like, what the hell are you talking about? This movie is all about a young boy who grew up in Nazi Germany towards the end of World War II, and you kind of see how he was like brainwashed into believing what the Nazis were like teaching him. But the big thing in this movie is he has an imaginary best friend who's Hitler, who's played by Taika Waititi. You might remember Taika Waititi from What We Do in the Shadows, or probably Thor Ragnarok, where he's Korg, and he also directed both of those as well. This movie could be difficult for some people to watch. It's quite a silly movie, but it does get more serious towards the end. And I saw one interview with a person whose parents were in a concentration camp, and the person said that like their parents would have loved this style of storytelling and like making such a serious matter like light, but also making it accessible to everyone. But yeah, it does have dark themes because it's about World War II. But yeah, like I said before, it does start quite silly, so it's got that going for it. I didn't know this movie is based on a book, but there were a few changes made and characters and stuff added in. At the time of recording, the Oscars are going to take place in about a week's time. Jojo Rabbit has been nominated for 6 Oscars, which I think is great because it's an indie movie. It's been nominated for Best Supporting Actress, Costume Design, which it definitely deserves, Film Editing, Best Movie, Production Design, and Adapted Screenplay. I definitely think it deserves Costume Design and Production Design because the sets and stuff are amazing and the costumes are really, really good. I would love to see it win Best Movie, but I don't think it's going to happen. It's probably going to be Joker. But if you're listening to this anytime after early February 2020, you'll know instantly if I was right or wrong. So you've got that going for you. So yeah, if you haven't seen this movie, I really recommend watching this movie. I may have made it sound like quite dark and serious, but yeah, to start off with, it is quite light and funny and kind of eases into the serious stuff. So you don't realize it's happening until the end. You're like, wait a minute, this movie is really serious. But it's definitely the story we need being told in 2020 of acceptance and stuff like that. Beware, going on will be spoilers, and you definitely should watch this movie without spoilers. So to start off with, we meet Jojo and his mum, who's played by Scarlett Johansson. First of all, I really like the kid who plays Jojo. As far as I know, this is like first big movie, and he's really great in it. His accent's not great, like he keeps slipping in and out of his German accent, but you kind of let it go because he's just great to watch. And then of course, yeah, we get introduced to his best friend, who is Hitler, and Taika Waititi is also great as Hitler because he makes him so ridiculous and like the butt of like all the jokes. And then we have the opening credits, which is to the Beatles. Apparently this was because when the director Taika Waititi was doing his research for this movie, he saw how obsessed people were with Hitler and stuff at like the height of like the Nazi power, and to him it seemed very similar to Beatlemania, so that's why he brought in this Beatles song. We see Jojo go away to his camp thing where he's going to learn about war basically. We get to meet more of the great people in this movie, so you get to meet Captain Klenzendorf, who's played by Sam Rockwell, who you might remember as the bad guy from Iron Man 2. I really like his character in this, he's really great. To start off with, he's a bit odd, and you don't really like him, but he grows on you as the movie goes. You got Fraulein, who's played by Rebel Wilson. Her character's okay, it's not perfect, but she's fun enough, I guess. Jojo's friend Yorkie, who's another unknown actor, who's pretty great in this. And then you've also got Alfie Allen from who's Theon in Game of Thrones, and he's kind of pointless in this. Like, he doesn't really say much, but apparently he was added into the movie and wasn't in the books, so that might be why is they just kind of ran out of space to put him in. But it's just kind of there as backup for Captain Klenzendorf, pretty much. And then as they're kind of welcomed into the camp, they're told the boys will learn how to war and the girls will learn to get pregnant, which is, a bit odd because they're like 10. But it also shows how dumb this stuff was, because I'm sure this is probably based on true stuff. But yeah, it just shows how things have changed. And then we also see Jojo learning, in air quotes, how to spot a Jewish person. And it's just so crazy and ridiculous. But again, at the time, like, this is the kind of thing that would have been happening. All the kids mock Jojo for not being able to kill a rabbit. He runs off and has to think about it with Hitler. And then the rest of the boys are being shown how to throw grenades, but are too scared. In comes Hitler and Jojo. Jojo grabs the grenade, and you're like, oh, is this going to be him getting more confident? And it's like, nope, he blows himself up. And I did not see this coming at all. Like, in the trailers, I've been back and watched the trailers since watching the movie. In the trailers, they very much downplay all of his scars. Like, they're there, but, like, they're not super obvious. And so, like, yeah, I did not see this coming at all. So now Jojo's covered in scars and he's back at home. Him and his mum goes to the captain to try and get him a job. And I love the bit where the mum just kicks him in the nuts. Like, yep, he definitely deserves that. Jojo gets a job putting up posters. And I love the bit where Fraulein is like, oh, here you go, Jojo, take a gun. And the mum's like, what the hell? Like, you just gave my kid a grenade and you tried to blow himself up. Now you give him a gun? Like, come on. We start to see Jojo and his mum spending more time together. And you start to see just how difficult it is being a single mother. Never mind during the war, like you can see the struggle she's going through just to keep her son happy. Jojo's at home and he hears noises upstairs. He finds Elsa, a Jewish girl living in his wall. I really like how she plays on his fears and the lies he's been told to scare him, just because they're so ridiculous. And she's like, yep, I can do all of those. Jojo and Hitler run away and hide in his room, and he comes up with a plan with Hitler, and Hitler's advice is of burning the house down and blaming Winston Churchill, because of course. Jojo gets really annoyed at his mum for being unpatriotic, but he can't tell her why, so she's really mad. We see his mum try and fix things, and when that doesn't work, she pretends to be his dad, which is a little odd. But it's like, okay, his dad's definitely dead. Like, there is no way he's still alive. You never find out in this movie, but you're like, yeah, he's totally dead. Jojo goes and sees Elsa and says he won't give her up if she tells him all of her secrets. And he starts writing a book on the secrets of the Jewish people. Jojo learns that Elsa has a boyfriend called Nathan. Us as the viewer notice that something has happened to him, but Jojo doesn't pick up on this and keeps finding, in quotes, letters to her from Nathan. Man, air quotes are really hard to do on podcasts. Jojo argues with Hitler about her not being evil, and this is us starting to see that Jojo is changing and not so much accepting all the brainwashing that he's had. We then see Jojo at work, where he finds his mum leaving free Germany notes around, seeing just how she's doing more than hiding people, which again, I'm sure there was a fair amount of people doing this in Germany, of, you know, despite the fact all the dangers they were in, they would have been doing as much as they can to help other people. And then Jojo's at home, and the Gestapo show up to raid his house. The main guy is a guy called Stephen Merchant, who you may not instantly recognise. He was in The Office, one of the main writers in that, and he's been a key person behind the scenes in a lot of things. Like, he wrote the game Portal 2. He came up with a lip sync karaoke thing that was kind of quite popular a few years ago. He's a very, very intelligent guy. He's also really, really funny, and he's great in this as a Gestapo guy. And then you've got the bit where they're all saying Hail Hitler to each other, and it's just so mad and crazy. And it's kind of played up to being ridiculous for the point of proving how ridiculous it actually was. The captain shows up to help Jojo, and at the time I was like, oh, it's nice that he's kind of, you know, shown up just to help out Jojo. Or you're like, is he here to help the Gestapo? But it's like, no, looking back on it, you're like, okay, he definitely knows what's happened to Jojo's mother, and he's come to help him, like, just in case. Elsa shows herself and pretends to be Jojo's sister. The Gestapo find Jojo's book and thinks it's hilarious. Jojo is out putting up posters and stuff when he sees some very familiar shoes on a person hanging on the gallows. And this is such an emotional moment, because you're just like, you haven't seen the mum for a while, and you're like, oh, maybe she's just busy. And then all of a sudden you see those shoes, and it takes a second, you're like, I've seen those shoes before. And it's like, oh my god. Jojo goes home and tries to stab Elsa, but she stops him from stabbing her too much, and Jojo breaks down crying. Then they watch the attacks as the Americans are getting closer. The one thing I kind of noticed here is she's been stabbed, and they don't really make a big deal out of it. Like, you know, it's not like there's blood everywhere, or, you know, it's like patch her up or anything. It's like, nah, he stabbed her, let's just move on. You find out the war is coming to an end, and the Americans are coming to take the town. And one thing that's kind of now, as Jojo's like wandering around, and you kind of see it all through the movie as well, apparently Taika Waititi discovered during his research that Germany was actually way more colourful during the war than most movies show it, and he really wanted to show off that colour, and that's why you see lots of colourful characters, especially with the mum played by Scarlett Johansson, because she's like this bright, colourful character. We also see how desperate all the German commanders were. We see Fraulein strapping grenades to kids and telling them to go hug the Americans, and it's like, that's so messed up, like, what the hell. She then tells Jojo to grab any gun that he can find before she dies herself. We also see the captain in his very flamboyant uniform and his gun that plays music, and it's just like, yes, like, you do you, Captain. The Americans win and take Jojo captive because he's wearing a Nazi jacket. Him and the captain have a bonding moment, and this is so cute, where it's like, you know, he's really mourning the loss of his mum, and then the captain helps spare Jojo's life because he knows they're about to be killed. Jojo doesn't really know what's going on, but the captain knows they're about to be killed. And the captain has his best moment when he convinces the Americans that Jojo is a Jewish kid by screaming at him until the captain is dragged away to be killed and Jojo is set free. And then Jojo runs into Yorkie, who says that his girlfriend will be able to leave now that the war is over. Jojo rushes home to find that she's still there, and when she asks who won, he tells her the Germans won and that she can't leave. And it's like, come on, Jojo, like, this isn't okay. This isn't what your mum would have wanted. Like, you can't keep a girl hiding in your walls just because you have a massive crush on her. And then seeing that she's upset, he reads a letter from Nathan saying that they've figured a way out for her to escape. He then finds out Nathan's dead, and he's like, but wait, I've been getting all these letters from him, like, to you. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Dead Hitler shows up at this point, because Berlin's been taken. He's very angry, and we see Jojo's finally had enough of Hitler, and, like, kicks him out a window. Jojo and Elsa go outside, she finds out the Americans won, she slaps Jojo, and then they dance. And it kind of feels like it's really channeling the spirit of the mum, because that's exactly what she would have wanted for her son and Elsa to do, is be able to dance out in the streets. And yeah, that's Jojo Rabbit. I really, really like this movie. I think it's a great movie. It's a really difficult topic, and I think they balance such a fine line, and it's the kind of story we need being told in 2020 when everything's about hate and like the world going to hell and stuff. Like, and also the director is Jewish and Maori, and he's experienced a lot of discrimination for being Maori especially, so I think he's definitely like a good person to tell this story. One thing as well I find interesting about this movie is how, even though they're all speaking English, all the writing in the movie is in German, and I think that's quite a subtle touch, and I quite like it. But yeah, that was Jojo Rabbit. What did you think of it? Feel free to come and let me know on Instagram. You can find me at Rambling Movie Club. So next episode's movie is going to be The Hitman's Bodyguard. I want to kind of keep playing up the silliness, I guess, and also I love Ryan Reynolds. The Hitman's Bodyguard, if you haven't seen it, is a road trip movie with Ryan Reynolds and Samuel L. Jackson, where they play a hitman and a bodyguard. And it's basically, if you like Ryan Reynolds or Samuel L. Jackson, you'll like this movie. It's one of the few road trip movies where they get like famous celebrities of the time and put them together. It's one of the few ones where it gets a sequel, and that's not always the case. Like, there was one in like 2010 or something after Iron Man came out with Robert Downey Jr. and the guy from The Hangover called Due Date, and it's awful. So it's like, this movie should have failed, but The Hitman's Bodyguard is great. So if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out before the next episode's podcast. Anyway, thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.